on the horizon. It's been said that those that have the eyes to see and the ears to hear will play a paramount role in the furthering of humanity and civilized society. But can civilized society and humanity survive the coming conflicts not seen since a dawn of time in ages bypast? But you can find true forms of information and knowledge in abundance at Revolution.Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the globe. Stand upon the right side of history. Revolution.
And good morning. Welcome to Coffee Rants with Dan. I am the spiritual anarchist, Dan Arnold, your host. Today is January 16th in the year of all of us, 2025. Today marks my 19th broadcast here on Revolution.Radio, and it almost didn't happen. The truth never sleeps. I was up at 0:30 in the morning on my laptop, putting truth out, and then I went back to sleep about 5, woke up a couple hours later, and my laptop would not start up. And I pressed the power button, the light would not come on, it would not start. It felt like it was overheating, and the electricity was still in it. I panicked and I called a friend of mine. John, if you're listening, thank you for talking me down. But it's working. They were trying to push an update on me, and I'm guessing that's what it was. So I almost thought I wasn't going to be able to come on the air today. And also a special shout out to Amy at Camp Revolution on Mountain Truth. She was going to call in and let Willow know that I wasn't going to be able to do the show. I didn't have a means of doing it, which makes me want to actually have a backup plan for next time. Sometimes I ask myself as I'm doing this, and I see so many other people who are doing it too, and I know this has to go through every person's mind who is speaking out against what's happening in the world, especially people in the freedom community who don't really vote. They don't partake in the two-party system. They understand it, but they don't really partake in it. And I ask myself, is there any point in even doing this. Like sometimes it's like, why am I even bothering? People seem so mind controlled and ego entrenched and media entranced. And, when I realized I wasn't going to be able to do it today, there wasn't relief, there was panic. So I guess I do want to be doing this. And if you're listening here in Studio A, Revolution.Radio, I'm here every Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. Revolution.Radio is the largest listener-supported platform in the world. So I never know who I'm going to be reaching, which is why I'm glad I'm on here. And if you have a little bit of extra, please go to the donation tab. And if you got a little bit extra, please give a little bit extra. But yeah, I have a special show today. A year ago, I'll have to look at the date. Actually, let me look at the date. Hold on a second. Let me see something here. I got the audio files on my computer. On January 13th of last year, I interviewed a former chief of police that worked for a medium-sized department here in the greater Cleveland area, and he had a UAP encounter back in the early 90s and describes it to the T. And it's very interesting, the stuff we talked about during that interview, because it's even more relevant with what has happened in the last year than it was even last year. And last year it was very relevant. He also talks about a sort of man in black who came to the department to give him files that he needed to read, and they were left with the desk sergeant or personnel, and who could not even give a description of this person. They're good at doing that. And, I guess the message was, hey, you need to, the chief needs to understand this now that he's the chief. So that was an interesting tidbit of information. He goes into other information about stuff that was in this file that he got in the early 90s. So listen carefully, because it's very relevant with what's going on right now. I mean, it's seriously relevant. And also talked about a security detail that he was on in the middle of the summer of 2001 with some unknown mafioso from New York who was here to get treatment at the Cleveland Clinic, who in his ramblings said they were going to run some airplanes, or actually drones, into the Twin Towers. So as I let this recording play, I may pause it from time to time to add just a small bit of commentary. Okay, it's a text. But for the most part, it's only a little over 30 minutes long. So I still have some things to talk about. I'm not going to just be playing. And I don't know why I've been doing this the last several weeks. It's just I have so much content from my podcast and from other interviews and videos I've done. And if it fits within the realm of getting an hour show in, or a 53-hour show in, I'm going to squeeze it in there. And if I go to a 2-hour platform, I'll definitely be squeezing more of those in there. The ones that I'm not really using a lot of profanity on. I posted something on the server yesterday. It went to it goes directly to my podcast on YouTube and on BitChute, and so people can see what I'm really about. I can talk nice. I could drop $5 words, but I really like to talk street, and sometimes profanity and aggravation come out of me because I'm human. And I think it's really, I think we're in a sad place in society when it's okay to blow up children in Palestine, and it's okay to have our money stolen from us by the government to fund immoral wars and commit genocide and murder one another. I don't think anyone listening to this will say murder is good. Genocide is certainly not good. Blowing up children is not good. We want small government. Even those that are political want small government. So I don't think anybody would disagree with any of that stuff, but God forbid if you use a colorful adjective to describe your disdain towards murdering of children. That we won't tolerate. That's the problem with our contradictive society. And I had somebody, come onto one of my posts on Facebook to shoot all these questions at me. And I do not get into rhetorical question answering, because all those usually are attempts to take control of the conversation and win a debate. I'm not about debating. I'm about giving information where you can have some true discernment of what the truth is. And I'm not going to get caught up in the minutia of people who want to ancillarily cherry pick these ancillary topics. I could have answered every single thing, but it would have gone against everything this guy even understands. And I'm working on my delivery of that, because people need to understand that, I said in my podcast yesterday, we're probably never going to vote again. There probably will not ever be an election again. Believe me when I say this. But I still think that people in this country need to get out of that two-party lens system. They need to take off their Republican glasses and their Democrat glasses and kind of unite and really take a look at what's happening in the world. They want to institute a new world government. There's 10 smart cities they want to, 3 that they want to institute, and 3 of them are in California, and the exact path that fire is spreading in mysteriously. And it's a fire that's not acting normal. It's burning brick, it's burning metal, and then there's plastic garbage cans right next to it that are left standing. And the streets were completely unaffected. Okay, folks, this is directed energy weapons. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. It exists. They exist. This person wanted to, he was a Democrat, and he wanted to say that, Republicans are dumb because they think it's the wrath of God and blah, blah, blah. Well, I agree with them. It's not the wrath of God, but I don't think Republicans are dumb any more than I think middle-of-the-road Democrats are dumb. I think the far woke left and the far right, who are in the Trump cult, are being bamboozled, personally. They need to come back to the center a little bit, where they're a little more teachable. The technology exists to control the weather. This is what frequency is. They use radio waves and frequency to control the weather. Cloud seeding, look up CERN, CERN, look up DARPA. These things exist. And the majority of people don't do that. They watch Fox News and CNN News, and then they rah and fight with one another about what the automatons that are bought and paid for on their say. And, I see a lot of people, some people actually, who are getting on, the independent media, that we are sounding just like the mainstream and how we're pushing what we're saying. Well, yeah, we have to. If we don't push back with the truth against the lies that they're saying, we're not getting the word out there anyways to the larger audience that we need to. To my 2 little producers up on Truth Mountain, Sebastian and Angus, our future heroes. I want to tell you guys, I hope that me and your parents can help create a world where we get people to pull their heads out of their rear ends, to where heroes will not be needed. Because I'm going to tell you the truth of things, after being a cop for so many years and having been in the military. Anyone who's done what I've done will tell you most heroes aren't alive. That's the sad truth. This is why every prophet throughout history has been martyred or murdered. Okay? So, with that said, I'm going to play this here. Let me put my mic up on. I'm pretty sure this will be done correctly, because I got the file right on my computer. It's in 2 parts. And enjoy this interview. It's very, very relevant. Okay? Again, this is a retired chief of police. I interviewed him last year when I was out of state, doing a couple of live talks in Florida. One of them ended up accidentally being at a Trump rally. I had to bust someone's chops over that. But at any rate, here we go. This is Dan. Welcome to the first TAC Chat of this year. I'm doing an audio-only recording interview with a friend of mine who I've known for 25 years. And he's more of a work colleague but we've kept in touch over the years. He was more like a work buddy. So for purposes of this interview I'm doing with him, I'm just going to call him Bud. And to give you a little background, we work together. For people who know about me, I've been in law enforcement, military and stuff. Me and Bud work together in law enforcement. And he's a retired chief from a medium-sized department. And he's got some interesting stories that me and him have talked about over the years. And at one point in time, we'd whisper about them and talk about them because it was like conspiracy theories. They were just conspiracies. But with everything going on in the world right now, a lot of the conspiracy theories are actually coming true. So we're more like conspiracy analysts. I think we always were. And it was during those dark hours of third shift, we would have the stupidest conversations about stupid stuff, but then we'd start getting into some real conspiracies about what was coming. And this was 25 years ago. And here we are. So I want to welcome my friend Bud to Tax Chat, and thank you for letting me interview you.
Not a problem. Welcome anytime.
So we were talking when you were still working as an officer. You had experienced some things, some phenomenon in the sky that many police officers throughout the country have reported, that pilots have reported, and you gave some really good details about what you've seen. Can you just tell the story? Tell me about that.
Actually, it was a summer night. One of the other officers had gotten into a fight, typically, and got injured, so he was on administrative leave. So I ended up having to be mandated to shift, third shift, which I didn't appreciate working a lot.
Right.
But about 3 o'clock in the morning one night, I was on the north side of town, and I looked across the horizon on the south, and most of the typical drunken drivers that I was looking for had dwindled down, and traffic was very light. And I saw what appeared to be a large-sized blimp going very slow across the southern part of town. So I drove down and actually parked, being as I was a photographer and accident investigator. I had cameras. I had movie cameras, had cruiser cameras. I probably had 4 cameras in my travel bag because I was always being called out to take photos of accidents and whatnot. But as I parked in this empty parking lot, the tip of this, I'll call it a dirigible type vehicle, was starting to come over me. I actually got out of the cruiser and looked up at it, and it appeared to be, I'm going to say 250, 300 yards above ground. And it was large, because as I looked back, I could see the end of it. And later, actually, because I was in accident reconstruction, I went back and the total length of it was just shy of a half mile from front to end. And the width was approximately a little over 1/8 of a mile wide.
Whoa, what was it shaped like?
It was shaped like a blimp. I thought it was a blimp.
Okay.
It was completely silent. And along the edges, because it was so close to the ground, and it was a clear night, there was all types of hieroglyphic markings, circles, lines, along the plate network along the side of this dirigible-shaped vehicle.
When you say dirigible, what is it? Okay.
Blimp shape.
Okay.
Typical blimp has a motor in the back of it,
right?
Like an airplane would. This had none. And actually, originating from the front, if you took the center of the front, the shape of a football, and the lines that radiated off, probably spaced maybe 20 feet apart, there were lines that looked like fluorescent lights that were shooting out of the front, changing color as it radiated toward the back. And they were also quiet. It started off with bluish green hues, and then as it went further back, they got into more pinkish, orangish, and then faded out as they heat the end of the vehicle.
It's interesting.
And I did actually talk to a neuroscientist who was a space scientist, and he said that he was interested in the colors, and at that time I had written a lot of stuff down. I had a house fire since then, so I don't have that information.
Right.
But he mentioned that magnetic propulsion would generate colors of that nature. And I just shook my head because he was saying the colors as I was thinking them. And I said, because it was quiet. And being that this was close to Lake Erie, I had several other sightings over Lake Erie.
Was it close to cigar shaped? I've heard of those kind in the past. Or was it a little bit more than...
It was more of a blunt shape.
Okay.
I guess from a distance you could say it was a giant cigar, but they make some big cigars.
As you named off the colors to me, okay, this is the yoga instructor in me coming out, and I'm not new agey. As you named off the colors to me, they were matching the chakras. All the way down through the body, the chakras. They were starting to match the chakras, which I think is weird, too, also.
Yeah, I never really thought about the colors that much until, like I say, he was a propulsion and he was a NASA technician, and he got into magnetic propulsion, and he said, it's interesting, he said, because the colors you're talking about are what would be used and expected in magnetic propulsion. And he said it was science. And I said, it was absolutely quite
interesting. I worked at NASA. I did security there. Never got to see anything cool. You got to see something cool, and I actually worked at NASA.
You know, the strange thing about it is everybody said, well, you had all these cameras. Why didn't you take a picture? I was so awe-stricken.
Yeah.
And I probably watched this thing for 10 minutes. It seemed forever.
And no noise.
No, absolutely quiet. And it was just above the treetops.
And what year, like, this was a long time ago. I think you were an officer, so we're talking 80s.
This was actually early 90s.
Early 90s. Okay, gotcha.
This was like 91.
Okay.
And I checked later. I didn't tell anybody. I was still all shaken. And in fact, I was so close to getting on the radio and calling one of the neighboring communities that it was going over and saying, do you see this? But I did. Again, awestruck. And people say it happens. It does happen. Like I say, I had movie cameras. I had 35 millimeter cameras.
So close to the lake. Because, again, we're talking about the greater Cleveland area, so we're right by Lake Erie. And I worked on Lake Erie Island as a cop, and a couple of them, actually. And I did see some weird stuff, but I just never paid attention to them. And I'm wondering now if some of the stuff I've seen could have been. So you think it could have been going in and out of the water, actually.
This one didn't go in and out of the water.
Okay.
However, I used to think...
Do you think it would be capable of it, though? I bet you some of them are capable of it. I've heard tell us that.
This thing was so big, it would be interesting to see this.
It's like a mothership. That's what it reminds me of.
It was gigantic.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely gigantic. I've seen other sightings over Lake Erie where I used to think, well, maybe they're coming to get water. Maybe where they're coming from, they don't have water. So they're coming to either use water as a fuel supply or they need water for life support.
I find this all fascinating because in the freedom and truth community, so many different things, we've been lied to about so many different things that a lot of the subjects, when you get with your tribe, so to speak, and you start talking to people who are picking up what you're putting down, you're like, finally, someone who speaks my language. A lot of times everything's kind of intertwined because you start talking about the truth about certain things and then all kinds of other truths. We've talked about alternative medicine since before the show. We were talking about alternative medicine, which I'm very thankful for him giving me some advice on that. And, you know, as time went on from that point, I remember we talked about an incident that took place. It's very mysterious when you became a chief. We're about 10 minutes in. Share the information with that as much as you can remember. Share whatever you want about that because I find that interesting because we're talking about a time where emails weren't even that big yet. So there was
computer technology was just being
started. I mean, we're talking MS-DOS is what we had back then, and nobody knew how to do typewriters. Reports were done on typewriters back then still,
or handwritten.
So yeah, tell us about what you experienced.
I went into work one morning, and it was strange. When I walked in, dispatcher handed me a package, and said that a gentleman had come and dropped it off and said, "This is for the chief," and it had on it, "For eyes only, chief." Didn't think it strange.
Pause 1 second, because my people know that I'm a weirdo. Just so you guys know, when we start talking about this, there's a bunch of crows in the background that previously were not there. Those of you who know me know I'm into shamanic animal totem stuff, so that's kind of weird and spooky, but go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay. So I went in, and the first thing I did was, naturally, I took precautions. I didn't know what the package was, but the message was, he's in a position he needs to know things. And I thought, interesting. Dusted it for fingerprints, no fingerprints. Very careful during the opening of it to make sure there was no strange powders or anything released when it come open, and everything was fine. Opened it up, and there was roughly 13 or 14 pages. And to describe it now, it was almost like a waxed paper with a mimeograph paper, but it reminded me of waxed paper.
Okay.
With printing on it.
Right.
And it had facts, a lot of interesting facts on it. Facts that Clinton was supposed to divulge information about UFOs being real before he was allowed to be elected into this special society of the knowing.
About what year was this?
This was very early 90.
So Clinton wasn't even president yet then?
No, he wasn't.
Okay.
Now, if you think about it.
Yeah, interesting.
Yes, President Clinton was supposed to give a State of the Union address and discuss UFOs. But, again, President Clinton wasn't president yet. He mentioned on frame 313 that President Kennedy was shot by the chauffeur. Interesting. I researched that, and very...
29-second mark, William Cooper's book.
Oh,
yep.
Yeah, the Zapruder film very definitely did show frame 313.
Yeah.
It appeared to be a government model, chrome-plated 45. Yeah. There was a whole bunch of interesting things. A lot of reference in the Pope. A lot of alien speculation. And I put the stuff back in the envelope. The next time I took it back out, it had faded a little bit. And the writing became more and more faded every time I opened the envelope. I eventually ended up taking the envelope home, and then lost everything in the house fire. I should have copied it or written it down, but I didn't.
Right.
Hindsight is always better.
Well, that stuff was fantastical, especially back then. Who's going to believe that? You didn't know, who those... Is there anything specific it said about the Pope? Anything it said specific about what's going on now in the world with, this impending new world order that they're trying to...
Going back, old age sets in. I can't remember much about the Pope. I know that they were talking, there was some information on the Pope, the Pope being the last Pope, the Peace Pope, and there was some stuff in there about Antichrist and stuff, but I don't remember
all that stuff
going on.
So they're telling you they're
New World Order.
Basically getting kind of biblical on you, right?
They were talking about, not so much about the Freemasons, but the immortality.
What was it?
It was the people that rule the world.
Yeah.
I believe it was 13 people, and they were the immortality.
The Illuminati or something else? The immortality, you're saying?
I'm saying immortality. I may be wrong.
You want to know what's interesting about the 13 people? 13 in the tarot deck is a death card.
I would suspect death is coming.
Yeah, and the thing is, when you were describing what you were seeing with glyphs, and could be described as symbols on the unidentified flying objects, right? Now they call it, what do they call it now? Unidentified aerial phenomenon, right? And they changed that for a reason, because what's coming up is going to be some reverse engineered technology first. It's interesting that you had somebody approach you as a chief in a medium-sized place, and I'm wondering if small towns get that too. But you had kind of a medium-sized department, and I'm wondering. I can only guess that of medium-sized departments where that was happening. I'm going to just go ahead and guess that big departments it was happening.
I'm sure it was.
And it was happening back in that time because if no one knows, if you read William Cooper's book, Behold the Pale Horse, he talks about the Deep State War, and the good guys won it in the 80s. They momentarily lost it. So I think after that, they immediately went into overdrive with things.
Well, you mentioned chiefs back then. The National Order of Chiefs at the time, I remember a questionnaire they sent me, and it would I take orders from the United Nations?
Really?
Yeah. That was interesting. I remember that question.
See, you want to know what just happened recently? Is in Cleveland, they had a police academy of 46 people. And that's a medium-sized academy for Cleveland. I mean, sometimes they put on 100 people at a time. But, I mean, 46 is still a good number. And within 1 month, at about the 1 month mark, and the academies now are like a year long, and about the 1 month mark, 40 of the 46 immediately resigned and left, walked out. So they were told something they didn't want to hear, which warms my heart, people, because, you know, I got an outreach to order followers to not follow the orders. Because as Bud knows, we took this oath to protect and serve, and that's the kind of, what we kind of do is pay attention to that part of it. And we kind of try not to pay attention to you're really serving the legislative branch. And they're the ones who, you know, make these immoral laws. And then they point the finger at us and tell us, right, as cops or as military, you didn't do the job enforcement the way we wanted you to. You weren't supposed to do that. And then we point the fingers back at them and say, hey, just doing my job. Meanwhile, they get done what they want to get done. So to see that they were trying to ask that question.
You know, it's strange. You mentioned class 47 diminishing, dwindling down quickly.
Right.
Can relate to that in another system because actually my son had a similar situation. I won't name the department where he became almost as shorthanded as they were before they started hiring. A lot of people dropped out. Interesting. So you don't wonder. There's things going on that they don't want to talk about.
There's a lot of spokes in this wheel of evil that seems to be very well. They're very determined. They're very thorough. And if the symbol for chaos is a bunch of arrows pointing outward, like a wheel with arrows pointing outward. Well, if we turn all those arrows and pointed them inward, we've got all that hitting us from all angles. I talked to an Air Force recruiter who said that if they couldn't even recruit, their recruiting was so stringent that if you had a twisted ankle in the 10th grade and you were a 12th grade football player about to be at military age and you're an athlete, you twisted an ankle a couple of years ago, that would disqualify you from getting in. Yet on Facebook and ads being allowed to run, the military is trying to recruit people my age and your age. And just so everyone knows, I'm a little bit above 50. They're wanting to recruit us old guys. Meanwhile, the young athletes and the military is being weakened. And at the border, you see these people coming in that are they're of military age. And I'm telling you, from being a military person myself and having been a cop and been an order follower for so many years, I've seen a couple of these dudes standing at parade rest. They were militarily trained already. So it's like the country is definitely being weakened. And I'm not really as concerned about any one country as I am about the world as a whole. Now I've kind of expanded my oath to protect. I got rid of the serve part. And I don't care about anything with any government. I just want to protect, and that oath is extended to the entire world if it can be. There's things in place where I don't know if we could stop it, but I just find it interesting. And we were going to do this talk like a year or two ago, but I just find it interesting that, back then in the 90s is when all the sitcoms came in. 90s is when dads turned into goofballs and mom knew best and all that other stuff. And 90s is when different online things became very prolific to distract us. And they had their dark social engineering going on in full force by the mid-'90s, and you were talking early '90s. You got some gray guy that's undistinguishable coming to you and dropping off an envelope, some things you needed to know. I just find that, and I'm wondering how much of that goes on with sheriffs. I know once a year, usually around March, which is the month of spring equinox and the beginning of the dark occult season of sacrifice. Every March, they have the sheriff's, It's like a yearly sheriff's meeting in Washington, D.C., where sheriffs from around the country go to Washington, D.C. I wonder how many of them they're trying to buy. How many of them they're trying to see if you'll take orders from, a government or, that there. It's almost like there's a night of the long nights. Yeah, it's what it seems like to me.
I think by opening the borders, we have our hands full, and it's going to get worse.
Yeah,
long before it gets better. And chaos is coming. In your age, you're worried about protecting. I'm just worried about surviving for a little bit longer.
Yeah, that's true. I've been in and out of light. I've been told how many times. I won't even get into that right now. I've got for anyone listening to this in a couple weeks' time here, where I'm at with Corey from Nita1.com. I'm going to be doing a conspiracy theorist talk that's probably going to be live streamed, and I'm going to be talking about a bunch of stuff that's going to probably trigger some people and blow some people's minds. I really don't care. Some people might think I'm crazy, but these are really normal times, aren't they?
Yes. Like I say, I'm still trying to unravel the incident that happened down in Miami. I'm not still trying to unravel the incident that happened in Hawaii.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? So the one that happened in Hawaii, it's like some space alien had a magnifying glass and decided to fry some ants.
And he did. He did a very good job.
And do you know, since we're speaking conspiracy stuff, I'll talk just a little bit longer here, that any house or vehicle that was blue was spared.
Pretty amazing shade of blue.
Yeah, and it was spared. And UN peacekeeping troops, what color are their helmets again?
I think blue.
Yeah, how about that? So, yeah, that was kind of weird to me. And, what was that project you heard of for the Miami Mall thing?
Project Blue.
Project Blue Book. I have a theory, and it was actually told to me by one of my close psychic friends. And for those who are really religious who don't believe in psychics, just look at the Bible, specifically the New Testament, and it's filled with nothing but prophecy. So start believing. There's some science behind it, actually. I'll get into that in my talk in a couple of weeks. But, what I was told was that that these beings have never left. We're sort of like a zoo. Think of the movie that they live with Roddy Piper, or I think that was the name of it. And like whenever he'd see what they really look like. Sometimes they refer to it as glamour. If the glamour drops, you see the shapeshifter. I'm thinking that it's technology and their little technology box they keep with them. The batteries must have glitched or something happened, and it could very well be that they were just walking around the human zoo, and boom. Now, I don't think nothing's happening by accident now. Everything's very well orchestrated and planned, and people can't fathom that.
But it did create chaos.
It did create some chaos down there.
I mean, they interviewed a lot of people down there, and they have never, since 911, seen that many police cars going anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, for blocks. Everything was blocked off. And then plus the fact that they lost power. 64,000 people lost power in the immediate area surrounding that incident.
So I have a theory. That maybe there was some extraterrestrial beings that have never left this area who were there, and maybe they don't communicate as well as they should. Who knows? It could be this is just total science fiction. This is an opinion. This isn't because normally my theories are I'm a conspiracy analyst, not a theorist. This is a theory. Maybe an EMP got hit off and it shut their boxes down for a little bit, and you get to see who
actually was walking around.
Yeah, it could have been any of those things. I just wanted to have this talk with my bud here, and it's just a quick one. Is there anything else you could think of, bud? During your time, you had a long career.
I probably forgot more than I can remember anymore.
If you had a message to give to law enforcement, you know what I'm about, but if you had a message to give to people who are order followers, law enforcement or military, wake up. Wake up. Wake up.
Shit's happening. Shit's coming fast.
Wake up and stand down. And the whole world needs to do that, order followers. Or the ones in our country need to wake up and really do what they swore an oath to do, and that is protect, not serve. All right, so anyways, man, Bud, thank you so much. And until my next, this is my first TAC chat of 2024, and it's audio only.
Okay, so that was for a podcast. This is the second part. It's about 7 minutes long.
All right, so still here with my bud. So anyways, it's something I wanted to talk to you about. You told me something about, I had quit, where we were at back then, the summer of 2001, where we were working. I had stopped, and I was already gone from there. But you said you had an interesting experience in the summer of 2001 before 9/11.
Yes, it was interesting, actually, because of my law enforcement career. I was sent on special protective, high custody, high transfer prisoners that needed special care. And actually another officer and I were selected to go and take this one individual who'd been dropped off by federal marshals, and he had some health issues, to take him to see a specific doctor, and he was only allowed to talk to one singular doctor, nobody else, no public. And we got there, and actually he felt like he got some bad news because he started rambling on, and I don't know if he felt spiritualistic and he wanted to cleanse his soul, but he started relating his whole criminal history to us.
Did you think he was going to die?
He had fears that he was on the verge of losing it because we were about ready to transfer him to another place that was another 100 miles away. And he thought that he was going to be probably leaving.
Where did he come from? He was out of state?
He was on his way actually to Colorado, to a special prison in Colorado.
Okay.
Where they normally housed high-profile mafia criminals, etc.
Okay.
And
so this guy was from New York, then I take it?
I think he was from New York.
Okay.
He definitely had a New York accent.
Okay.
And he started confessing his sins, all the people that he'd murdered, all the people that he had killed. And then something that, because he was just going on and on and on, he led a very active life. It's no wonder that he was a prisoner because of his affiliation. But he made one comment that neither of us paid attention to until an event occurred later on. And mind you, this is approximately 6 months before 9/11 happened. He told me that the government's going to be flying planes into the Twin Tower buildings to cause a war with Iraq over oil. And naturally, I fluffed it off. How did he know, or what do you know?
Yeah.
But he said no. He said we're going to be starting a war, and he said the government is actually flying drones, unmanned aircraft, into the Twin Tower buildings, and that's going to create a war.
Okay, so I was going to stop this once in a while. Drones in 2001. We didn't know a whole lot about those then, did we?
It was interesting, like I say, until I woke up and the planes flew into 911, the tower. His conversation was idle little talk, but as soon as I saw the other officer, the transporter with me that night, I looked at him, he looked at me, and we both knew exactly that this was a government cover-up, that the mafia knew about it.
So you think the city officials in with the mafia, of course, they're all criminals, so they kind of got together and they knew what was going to happen, probably.
And what made it, actually, my brother used to work for Motorola. He retired from Motorola.
Right.
Very high-tech in radio technology and everything else. When he heard about 911 and the phone calls being made from the planes, He said they don't have that technology. And if you actually Google it now, you will find that shortly after 9/11 happened, within a year after that, airlines started announcing that you could use your cell phones on airplanes, that they had that technology now.
Right.
They didn't have the technology when 9/11 actually occurred. So all the people calling their moms and, "Hi, Mom, this is your son, Jerry. Do you recognize me?" Yes. He said this was all staged and it was all pre-recorded. He said this mafia inmate, which I won't name him, had made call that he said that several generals, in order to fool high administrative people in the government, they were using artificial intelligence to create voiceover of people, then they could clone their voices identically. He said Colin Powell would call like the president or something, and everybody would swear it was Colin Powell. It wasn't him. It was artificial intelligence. He said, so they had technology that was above and beyond.
Anything.
And so actually when 9/11 happened, I just shook my head.
So he seemed like he was pretty in depth. He was like very detailed.
He knew a lot about it. He knew a lot about it.
Wow.
To the point where the other officer that I was with, he did a report on it, included in it. Actually, we did a report that night that we transported him, but that was all buried, never brought up again. And he did a report the day 9/11 occurred.
Another one. Another buried one.
And it never went anywhere either.
How about that shit?
And I don't know whatever happened to the prisoner, the inmate, the mafia killer. He probably playing ping pong out in Colorado somewhere.
Oh, he's dead by now if he was that sick back then. So he thought he was giving a deathbed confession. He thought he was going to die, so he just started telling.
I'm sure the doctor. We weren't allowed to be in the room.
Right.
We were behind a curtain.
Right.
To make sure nobody else saw him. But I don't know what the doctor told him. But again, I know that the guy thought he was dying because, again, we were going to be transporting him high speed to another hospital.
Okay.
And while they were arranging transportation is when he started confessing his sins, because I think he felt he was going to meet his maker soon.
I had done some contract work for the marshals back in the day when I was in law enforcement, and it usually was sitting on a federal inmate, or it was going to federal court or something like that. So this guy was definitely a federal inmate then.
He was a federal inmate.
Yeah.
I mean, our segregation unit, we had a non-smoking unit. This guy, he had the whole back of segregation to himself. He was going through a carton or two of Marlboros every couple of days.
Oh my God!
In a non-smoking institution.
Right.
But he had anything that he wanted, and it was kind of a joke. It was something interesting. I think you might be interested in that.
Very interesting, and I'm glad that we did that. And let's see what else we have to talk about here. But that's an incredible story, man. A very incredible story.
Gives me full faith in our government.
You know what? Exactly, man. So to everyone listening, just remember this, okay? Make sure you vote harder this year. If you vote more harder, maybe it'll change something. Okay, I'm being really, really sarcastic, man. All right, much love to everybody. Take it easy. Later. Okay. So there you go. And after that event occurred in 2001, the Patriot Act and other things that were enacted took away our Fourth Amendment rights, and we haven't gotten those rights to privacy back. Now, anyone who knows me knows as far as the Constitution is concerned, because I've had people try to put me into a bracket and say that I was a constitutionalist, and I literally would go to Washington, D.C., get the actual Constitution, drink a cup of coffee, and wipe my ass with it. Because I do not need another human being scribbling down on some piece of paper or parchment what my rights are, and then handing them to me, another human being. Here's your rights, because I wrote them down and I'm telling you what they are. It's not a contract I agreed to. I know what my rights are. I know what your rights are. Those I can go off on a tangent on that. Freedom is our birthright. Okay? And that's as simple as that. And until they want to keep us vibrating in a state of fear, they want to keep us apart. They want to keep us. They want to keep, or in the population control and control agenda. They want to keep men and women from uniting in that sacred union. You meet the right person and you fall in love and then rise in consciousness, which is what the world needs to do, and understand that we should not initiate harm to other sentient beings. And I would go a little bit step further and say we shouldn't initiate harm to other beings, period, or still. Once we get to that point, then we'll actually have real freedom. But as long as we allow the murder and violence to be conducted against our fellow humans, our fellow beings on this planet, we're going to have that collective karma. Okay? That's what we're putting out into I've heard it called the morphogenic field, or the collective consciousness. That's what we're putting out into the major arcana, the macrocosm of the world. We're putting out violence and slavery, which is what we've done throughout all of human history. And I think God with a capital G, the mother and father in the Sea of Lights, to experience something different from humanity so we stave off another cataclysmic event. And we've had at least 5 or 6 of them. If you look at the geological record, we have to do something different as a species to stop that from happening. And it's just not appearing so. It doesn't seem like it's happening. We've got some. At the same time, I think this is the most amazing time in human history to be alive, to see these changes occurring, to see this battle that's going to occur. I've heard it said we could very well be in a proving ground. That's what this 3D reality on Earth is about. We're in a proving ground. And when we do the right thing, we will advance, possibly to fight a real war against evil. Because remember, creation has allowed this involuted force of evil to exist for a reason. It's part of creation. So we have to figure all this stuff out as a species. This is why I said that when stuff hits the fan, we have to have love and discernment. We can't other people. This isn't The Walking Dead. People that disagree with you or look a little bit different aren't zombies. That's the predictive programming that they try to throw into us to make us more violent. And I'm not about violence. Okay? I'm about using force to defend myself, but I'm not about initiating violence. And in my opinion, voting, which we're not going to ever have to do again, trust me, a couple of my podcasts and things like this that I'm saying will go viral within another year or two after they've occurred. You can believe that. Voting, in my opinion, especially in the last 12 years, but probably all that for all of history, it's just a game they play to let you think like you got some kind of control, and they do what they want to do anyway. Besides that, it's initiating violence. You're condoning the use of coercive violence against your fellow human being at the whim of some legislator who passes some law that order followers will then enforce. That is completely immoral, because it's not immoral to smoke a green leaf. I'll go as far as to say it's not immoral for consenting adults to have some type of exchange with one another for physical intimacy. Okay? I won't put it the way I would on my podcast. My message to order followers is this, and to anybody who's hard on order followers. I'm usually hard on you guys too. I'm not going to be hard on you. You guys are stuck between a rock and a hard place. You guys, and I'm not talking about the federal ones, F them. I'm talking about the boots on the ground in local level who are at the disasters at ground level. You guys are going to be put in a position that I don't envy. Your choices are going to be run the spectrum from bad to worse. You're going to be called upon to fulfill your oath. I was one of you. I'm going to fulfill mine. All right. There's the music. Nothing but love. Stay safe.